Political parties in Sri Lanka are scrambling to form an all-party government a day after President Gotabaya and Prime Minister Ranil pledged to resign in the wake of historic citizens' protest. The anti-government sentiment across various parts of Sri Lanka has triggered a state of political instability. It is fueled by the anti-government protest and demonstration by the public due to the economic crisis in the country. The Sri Lankan economy has been facing a crisis owing to a serious balance of payment problem. Its foreign exchange reserves are depleting rapidly, and it's becoming increasingly difficult for the country to import essential consumption goods. The Sri Lanka rupee has lost more than 80% of its value. Food costs have skyrocketed by over 50%, and tourism, one of the country's main revenue sources, has significantly diminished due to the COVID-19 pandemic. So let's understand the situation of Sri Lanka and its impacts actually. So what led to the Sri Lanka crisis? So when Sri Lanka emerged from a 26 years long civil war in 2009, its post-war GDP growth was reasonably high at 8 to 9% per annum till 2012. So, however, its average GDP growth rate almost halved after 2013 as global commodities price fell, exports slowed down, and import rose. So, Sri Lanka budget deficit were high during the war and the global financial crisis of 2008. So, it's again approached the IMF in 2016 for another 1.5 billion USD dollar loan. However, the conditionalist of the IFM further deteriorate Sri Lanka's economic health. So in 2021, all fertilizers import were completely banned, and it was declared that Sri Lanka would become a 100% organic farming nation overnight. This overnight shift to organic fertilizers heavily impacted food production. So consequently, the Sri Lankan president declared an economic emergency to contain rising food prices, depreciating currency, and rapidly depleting forex reserves. So the Easter bomb blast of April 2019 in churches in Colombo, resulting in 253 casualties, consequently dropped the number of tourists sharply, leading to a decline in foreign exchange reserve. So the new led government by Gotabaya in 2019 promised lower tax rates and wide ranging of SOP for farmers during their campaigns. The quick implementation of these promises further accelerated the problem. The COVID-19 pandemic in 2020 impacted imports of tea, rubber, like spices, garments, and the tourism sector also. So China trap policy played a significant role in economic instability in Sri Lanka. So crisis in Sri Lanka is triggered due to a shortage of foreign exchange reserve, which have dropped by 70% over the last 2 years to just 2 billion USD by the end of February 2022. Meanwhile, the country has foreign debt obligation of about 7 billion USD in 2022. So Prime Minister Wickremesinghe and President Gotabaya signaled the willingness to resign, making a way for an all-party government to take over. So what is the impact of this for India? So Sri Lanka's share in India's total export has declined from 2.16% in financial year 15 to just 1.3% in financial year 22. So automotive firms like Tata Motors and TVS Motor have stopped exports of vehicle kits to Sri Lanka and halted production at the Sri Lankan assembly units due to its unstable forex reserve and fuel shortage. So whenever a political or shortage, so India may find it difficult to handle such an influx and needs a robust policy in place to handle the crisis. So state of Tamil Nadu has already started feeling the impact of the crisis with the reported arrival of 16% from Sri Lanka through illegal means. So amid the sudden halt of tea supply by Sri Lanka to the global tea market, India is keen to plug the supply gaps. India could strengthen its footprint in Iran and as well as new markets such as Turkey, Iraq. So big Sri Lankan tea importers from Iran, Turkey, Iraq and Russia are reportedly visiting India for tea plantation in Assam and Kolkata. As a result, at recent Kolkata auction, the average prices of orthodox leaves saw an increase of up to 41% compared to corresponding sales last year. So many April orders from the United Kingdom, European Union and Latin America countries are now being diverted to India. So several orders have been given to companies in Tripura, the hub of the textile industry in Tamil Nadu. So Sri Lanka has been a strategically important partner for India. India can make use of this opportunity to balance the diplomatic ties with Sri Lanka, which have been distant owing to Sri Lanka proximity with China. As the disagreement between Sri Lanka and China intensified on the fertilizer issue, India's fertilizers delivery to Sri Lanka on the latter request is seen as a positive development in the bilateral relations. So to this extent, India can extend help to alleviate the hardship of Sri Lankan. It should be done with due care, keeping in mind that the optics of the aid matters too. So there is a need for a strong political consensus in Sri Lanka for better crisis management. So military session of administration can be reduced. So consideration are needed to help the poor and vulnerable get back on their feet and prevent long-term scaring. The steps include an increase in agriculture productivity, increased job opportunity in non-farming sector. So better implementation of reforms and reviving the tourism sector. So India, which has followed the neighborhood first policy to cement bonds with its neighbors, so it can walk that extra mile to help Sri Lanka out of the current crisis and help Sri Lanka towards realizing its potential to reap the reward of a stable, friendly neighborhood. India businesses can build a supply chain and that intertwine the Indian and Sri Lankan economies in goods and services ranging from essential goods to information technology service. So it's mid-March 2,70,000 tons of diesel and petrol have been delivered to Sri Lanka. So in addition, India can charter the trajectory of Sri Lankan presence in the multilateral forums like G20 that will provide Sri Lanka a base of assistance from developed nations. So Sri Lanka has approached the IMF for the bailout. The IMF can support Sri Lanka effort to overcome the current economic crisis. So IMF can restore macroeconomic stability and debt sustainability while protecting the poor and vulnerable, safeguarding financial stability and stepping up structural reforms to address corruption vulnerabilities and unlock Sri Lanka's growth potential. So with reference to economic instability in Sri Lanka, the dependence on import can be minimized by the circular economy. It will offer a sustainable alternative to aid recovery. So that's all about the Sri Lanka crisis discussion. It's a very important topic nowadays. It's a trendy topic, we can say. Thanks for watching.